Hey, Adam, welcome to episode 2 of Build Your Authority.
Joe Bardavia. It's great to be with you.
I love how we open these podcasts every week. I love the energy. No one can just to pop this on in the middle of the night while they're half asleep because they will immediately be awakened from our energy.
It's my very short time to pretend and live vicariously through you as if I was a New York radio disc jockey. It's Joe Bardavia coming to you live. It's Tuesday morning here in New York City. There's a light drizzle. We've got 65 degrees. We've got traffic. It's building up in the Holland Tunnel on the way to the city.
Wow, Adam, you missed your calling. Who needs a multi-million-dollar publishing business? You could have made a solid 25K in New York doing that. I mean, who needed all that? But Adam, today we're going to dig into Amazon.
Yep.
We concluded episode 1 discussing the impact of it. And what were those numbers again? Where basically Amazon is a search engine, which I find funny. People don't realize that most people won't buy anything until they go on Amazon. Adam, I'm sure you've done this too, where you'll walk into a store and be like, I think I could use that widget, but wait, let me see how much it costs on Amazon first.
Yeah.
And then if it's about the same, they may just buy it there or just be like, oh, wait till I get home. So talk about that power of Amazon and the search.
Yeah. And by the way, that was the brilliance, of course, of Amazon Prime. Is you go to a store, you see, you say, oh, let me just see how much this is on Amazon. And, oh, I'm a Prime member, so I'll just order it on Amazon. So really, all these brick and mortar stores are just showrooms to then drive sales to Amazon. It's crazy. So the biggest search engine in the world is Google. Second biggest search engine in the world is YouTube, which is owned by Google. And the third largest search engine in the world, and I guess, I mean, this probably fluctuates. Alibaba, I guess depending on the measurement that you're using, could be higher, could be lower. But at least for, I'll call it the Western world, really the three largest search engines, Google, YouTube, and Amazon in that order, right? And Amazon, of course, is the third largest search engine, but it's really a marketplace to buy goods. And what you got to realize is when people go to Amazon and they do a search, they're searching to get product information, but they also have an intent to buy. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to Amazon. So it's the most powerful search engine in the world because it directly is attracting people with an intent to buy, which I think gives it special acclaim.
And in future episodes, we're going to get into the publishing side with ebooks, audiobooks, all that. But we thought it was important enough because of the impact Amazon has to bring in our resident Amazon expert, which is Corinne Foster. Corinne, welcome to Build Your Authority.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm not sure I can replicate the disc jockey intro as well as you guys can.
Please don't do it.
I'll sit that one out.
Joe, if only we had glasses as cool as Corinne's, we would be at least 2 or 3 notches higher at the cool scale.
She's very stylish. And Corinne, Adam has spoken glowingly of you about the just your mind and how much you know about Amazon. But before we get into the Amazon of it all, how did you get here? And I know you've been doing this for a while now, but what led you to this path of becoming the quote-unquote Amazon expert that Adam says you're top 5 on the planet in terms of your knowledge of the platform? But how did you get there?
Well, that's very flattering. I essentially just spend too much of my day on Amazon. It really started, I entered the publishing industry working for a food marketer who was producing cookbooks. And as part of that, they said, Corinne, figure out how to market a cookbook. And that was 15 years ago. So I've really kind of grown with the Amazon marketplace and social media as a promotional tool and, pay-per-click and social advertising. So I think it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of tenacity, being fixated on figuring out how that algorithm works and what I have to do to influence it.
And Adam used this scary word in episode 1 called Amazon's a black box. Like, it's very mysterious. What's up with the mystery of it all?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of their appeal. That's part of how they work, is that all the information that they gather from users to make those really spot on product recommendations, they consider that all to be proprietary information. So what we know about the algorithm is a lot of publishing forums and talk between book marketers and just trial and error and observing the cause and effect between what we do as a marketer and what impact that has on the Amazon book page and rankings and sales for that book.
Yeah, and Joe, don't forget, right? I mean, we're going to spend most of our time with Corinne talking about books. Of course, Amazon is the world's largest marketplace, at least in the Western world. But books is where it all started, right? In 1994, all it was an online bookstore, right? And Jeff Bezos and his ragtag bunch were literally shipping books all over the country. So when people think about Amazon, at least those that have some age and experience like the three of us, we remember, oh, Amazon was the place to go and buy books. Now, today it's a lot more than that, but it's the largest bookseller in the world by a country mile. Uh, depending on the stats that you look at, anywhere from like 67 to 71% of all books sold in the world go through Amazon. So if you're an author and you have a book, understanding Amazon is like the most important thing if you want to sell books. And yet, am I to meet an author that says, "Yeah, I don't want to sell any books"?
And we don't want to discount independent bookstores, Corinne.
Not at all.
I know you're a big fan of them, but obviously, as Adam mentioned, over 70% of the planet's buying books through Amazon. So we have to start there because that is where it all starts. So we should get into how this all works. Can you start by talking about in terms of the key elements of effective book marketing when it comes to Amazon, Corinne?
Yeah, so there's a couple different pillars to keep in mind when you're marketing a book on Amazon. And it really starts out with discoverability and how you're optimizing your product page. So you want to make sure that you have a book cover that's genre appropriate and looks good at 1.5 inches high and can connect with readers. You want to make sure that you have a title and subtitle that is targeted to your ideal reader and contains keywords so that it's searchable. You want a book description that has bullet points and italics, not only because the algorithm likes to see that and uses that as an indicator of what is important within that description, but that's how consumers browse content as well. They scan a book page in a Z pattern, and right in the middle of that Z pattern is the book description. And they want to see those key takeaways in short snippets that tell them exactly what they're going to get. And then also consumer reviews are important for a variety of reasons, but they provide SEO value to a book page. So you kind of have that optimization and discoverability pillar. You also have to keep in mind traffic. You need to have a plan to drive traffic to your product page. It's kind of like putting a ship in the harbor and not having any wind. If you are not driving any consumers there, you can't realistically expect any sales. Consumer reviews, like I mentioned, are also important because they're the social proof that turns a browser into a buyer. You've never gone to a product page and said, "Oh, too many reviews, not going to buy that one." You're looking for the product that has the most reviews. It's an indication of where consumers are finding value and what the most relevant product and book is in that field at any given time. So those are three main pillars that we really focus our efforts on.
And Joe, let us not forget that unlike what our mothers all taught us, every book is judged by its cover. And most authors design the book cover that they like. They don't design the book cover that will appeal to their target reader. And Corinne and our book promotions team and our head of book distribution, they have what I call the smackdown effect. And so they'll have these conversations with authors well before the publication of their book. And, the author comes in with their idea of what they want. And, Corinne's like, I think you said you wanted to sell books, right? No, oh, yeah, I want to sell lots of books. And it's like, okay, the cover, the title, none of that's going to work. And what is so important is that Corinne knows exactly what works on Amazon. She knows what the algorithm wants. She knows what consumers want. And so if you're an author, you've got to bait the hook to suit the fish, not the fisherman. Most authors make the mistake of they create the book that they've dreamed about, But if you want to sell books, you've got to create the book that your target reader wants.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that about Adam, and you guys talk about the book cover. Corinne, Adam, we've seen this a lot where people love the idea of having a book with their big old giant face on it. And Corinne's already laughing about this, but
Oh,
tell me about that, because I know a lot of people, when they dream about the book, before they even dream about the content, they're like, I want a nice big old shot of my face on the cover. Tell me what the impact of that could be, or no impact at all.
I completely understand that desire. You know, they're establishing their thought leadership. They're putting time, money, resources, everything they have into this book, and it's a part of them. They want it to reflect that. When you think of how a consumer is browsing products and what's going to attract their attention, if they see a book cover with someone on the jacket that they don't know, they're not going to give you that extra time to find out who they are. They're going to browse right past you and go to the next product that speaks more directly to what they're looking for and what's going to solve a problem for them. You know, specifically with nonfiction books, they're not generally leisure reads. They solve a problem and address a pain point for readers, and your face on the cover doesn't communicate that to them.
I've seen it work occasionally, obviously celebrities, right? If you're a celebrity and everybody knows who you are, that your face on the cover of the book can make sense. But for most people that aren't celebrities, it's not going to yield higher sales.
And you mentioned social media earlier, Corinne, and that's some of the work you started with. How important is having that presence before the book? You know, I don't know if it's a chicken and the egg type thing, but a lot of folks, they may start their authority journey with us or with someone else with the book, and then, hey, you know what? I should sign up for this TikTok thing. I hear it's popular. But how important is it to do the social media first, or at least have a social media footprint before publishing a book?
Yeah, it's really best to start building that platform and building that community long before you're trying to sell to them or offer them any kind of product. Your main purpose for using social media should be to engage and share content of value and build a community that's going to support your work. So, you know, certainly you can't go back in time. So if you haven't started your social media and you've got a book coming out, you know, there's no better day than today to start setting up those accounts and making progress to being part of that community. But, you know, you really are kind of behind if you get to publication, you don't already have a community to engage with and share that new content with.
Now we got to get Corinne working with Adam Whitty, because Adam, you, as we've been joking behind the scenes, you really have to increase your social media presence. So Corinne, if you can grab Adam in a headlock one of these days, that would be very helpful for him, I think, in the long run.
Yes, Adam has lived under a rock when it comes to social media for some time. It's a classic "do as I say, not as I do." So Corinne, let's talk about specifically book sales on Amazon, and let's talk about the Amazon page, right? So there's a lot of optimization strategies for the actual Amazon page. And when somebody visits that Amazon page, you've got a couple of split seconds to either captivate them and possibly turn them into a buyer, or you lose them and they're on to the next page. So talk through strategies for optimizing your Amazon page to captivate and capture as many people as possible.
Yeah. So I will start that conversation assuming that you already have settled on a cover, a description, a title. You know, those are things that are worked out during the creation of the book. And you can't go back in time once you've settled on them. So working with what we have, then you have the ability to take advantage of what I call bells and whistles that aren't particularly widely known. You know, Amazon's not giving you a checklist of what you need to do to make your book page retail ready. So one thing you can do right off the bat, and I encourage every single author to do this, is set up what's called your Amazon Author Central account. This account will do a few things. First and foremost, it will add your photo and bio to the book page. So that lends credibility. It lets people see what your credentials are, and it gets them to spend a little more time on that book page. And it's shown that the longer consumers engage with the book page, the more likely they are to become a buyer. Not only because they're getting useful information, but because it's now embedded in their Amazon history. So Amazon is going to remind them for a period of time, typically about 2 weeks, that they were interested in this product. And hey, do you still want to buy this? Do you want to, take the next step and add it to your cart now? That Author Central page is also going to create a landing page for you as an author on Amazon. So by owning more Amazon real estate, you're creating more entry points into your book page, which, widens the top of that funnel and captures more people and brings them into the fold of your content. Aside from the Author Central, we then talk about category positioning on Amazon. So categories are essentially the equivalent of how bookstores shelve books. And Amazon's categories are much more diverse than the typical genre of a book. So they let you really hone in on different target audience for your book and make sure that it's being recommended to a wider variety of readers. So when we work with our authors, we do a considerable amount of research to determine what categories make sense for this book, what could it fit in to based on the content match. Also, what categories could it fit into based on the reader type, and where you're most likely to, again, solve that pain point for the reader. So we come up with a list of all the categories that a book could fit in, and then we evaluate them based on what titles are currently ranking as a bestseller in those categories, and are they the type of titles we want to align yours with. And we also use some third-party software that allows us to estimate the number of books being sold by the bestsellers in those genres. So that's going to give you some market context about how much activity you need to create on Amazon to have your book recommended to readers of that category, to rank as a bestseller so you can use that into your marketing, and to trigger that free promotion in those carousels of product recommendations that Amazon is so known for.
Corinne, I say a lot, the riches are in the niches.
Yes.
And Amazon has created this unique opportunity that really didn't exist before, which is to niche your book into very specific categories. 15 years ago, there was a well-known book that was written. It's titled The Long Tail. And the concept of the book was very simple, that the power of Amazon was that it was going to become easier and easier and easier for authors to write and sell books on very micro niche specific topics. And, some of those most niche topics maybe would only sell 20 or 30 or 40 copies a year, not, 200 copies or 2,000 copies a year, right? And so I think that it's really important for authors to know that, the riches are in the niches. And if you know exactly who your target audience is, there's nothing wrong. In fact, it's actually smart to write that book specifically for them, because it's easier to target. It's easier to actually build a marketing plan and a marketing budget that can reach those people. But just talk for a minute about how Amazon has created this powerful tool where you can get really micro specific on what your book's about and specifically reach the target ideal reader for that. Whereas like in a bookstore, there's maybe only a couple thousand books in a bookstore. So the bookstore is really carrying books for the masses, where Amazon is one of the few places where books can be marketed for the super niche.
Yeah, and I think it's really good to remember that Amazon rewards book page activity. So in terms of keeping your book active in those product recommendation algorithms, you will be much more successful if you choose a very specific niche category where you are consistently selling books of any number, rather than putting yourself in a larger, more aspirational category where you're going to sell significantly less books. Because what's going to happen is you are essentially going to be suppressed in those larger categories because there's just too much competition and there's too much consumer choice. If you hone in on a specific niche and you are selling a number of books that keeps you in the top 10 and listed as a bestseller, you are going to be top of mind. You're going to be one of the first 10 books the consumer sees when they consult a category that is specific to their need. So I would much rather have an author choose a smaller, less competitive category where they are ranking as a bestseller for the long term and selling a consistent and respectable number of books than, go for those pie in the sky categories because it's going to work against you. So one of the things I always encourage my authors to do is know the marketplace. You have to know where your book is going to be positioned and who your peers are in that space and what their book is doing on Amazon. So you can search Amazon by category, but just going to the book section or going to the Kindle section, and along the left side of the page, they make the hierarchy of categories very clear and accessible. And when you go through to the business category, you need to drill down into a topic area, say entrepreneurship. And then within entrepreneurship, you'll see 3 or 4 options there. Drill down further, keep drilling down into the smallest niche you can find that is still relevant to your book, because that's where you're going to have the most success. And also remember that if you are ranking as number 1 in a very small category, you level up and you bubble up to that parent category. So you may be number 1 in small business, and that's enough activity to get you to number 10 in entrepreneurship. And then number 10 in entrepreneurship is really number 30 in business development. And number 30 in business development is number 50 in just the general business and money category. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to have visibility to those larger categories. It's that the success starts in the smaller niche categories.
Corinne, let's pivot for a minute to the topic of Amazon advertising. So, this is relatively new and relatively kind of over the last, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years, where Amazon advertising has really become a powerful force for promoting books if you know what you're doing. And what I have found is most people don't know what they're doing. And so they're spending a lot of money advertising, attracting people that are never going to buy or pay any attention to it. Okay. But maybe start by give us the quick kind of high level history of Amazon advertising. And then let's specifically kind of talk through how authors can wisely leverage Amazon advertising to promote and ultimately sell books.
Yeah, Amazon advertising was a big deal when they first rolled it out about 8 years ago, because it's allowing publishers and now authors to really tap into all of that data that Amazon has. So when you go to run Amazon ads, you can target Amazon users by a few different criteria. You can target them by the keywords that they're searching. You can target them by the categories that they're browsing. And you can even target them by specific products that they're browsing. So when we run Amazon advertising for our authors, we take advantage of all 3 of those targeting opportunities. It really allows you to get as close to the consumer as possible and get to those consumers who are most likely to buy based on the way they're browsing Amazon. Adam, you mentioned earlier that people are browsing Amazon because they're much further in their buyer's journey. They are ready to make a purchase and find something that solves their problem or fulfills a need. So those people have their credit card information entered. Most of them have one-click purchase activated. So if I can get an ad in front of someone based on a keyword that they're searching, they click on the ad, they browse the book page, and then they add checkout now. And they can either have that book on their device in 10 seconds, or they can have it on their doorstep in 2 days. So it's very, very easy to turn a browser to a buyer when you've removed all those barriers. By comparison, if you run Google ads, you can target similarly, but you're getting people that are looking for free information. They're searching Google for options. They're really just kind of surveying the landscape at that point, and they're going to take what's available to them free first. If you do get them to your Amazon book page, there is a much higher hill to climb to get them to convert to a buyer. The Amazon advertising it's my favorite to run because it converts from a browser to a buyer at a much higher rate than any other advertising that I've run. It's 2 to 3 times that of Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter advertising for all those reasons I covered.
And what's it look like, Corinne, for folks who've never done this? Like, we all know how Google Ads works and we see outside. Is it similar with Amazon?
So if you think about browsing Amazon as a consumer first, you are seeing loads and loads of ads every time you browse Amazon and you don't even know it. So there's these little gray call outs everywhere you see a book cover that will denote what's a sponsored ads. And they're very unobtrusive, and the recommendations are so spot on to your need that you very rarely even see them. But when you run Amazon advertising, those ads for your books can really appear anywhere on Amazon.com, in the Amazon emails that you receive. And then if you do a larger scale custom advertising campaign directly with Amazon, your ads can show on third-party sites like the Wall Street Journal and other news sites that are part of Amazon's network. But one thing to keep in mind is that these are not fully designed ads, like if you were to place a banner ad somewhere or take out an ad in a magazine. What we do is we give Amazon your book ASIN, which is their identifying code for your book. And Amazon's system mixes and matches your cover, your title, the star rating, if your book is currently a bestseller. And it's constantly playing with how that's displayed on site, because they're constantly optimizing where's the best place to place an ad, what's going to convert at a higher rate. So Amazon kind of takes care of that optimization for you. You just tell it who your reader is and how to reach them on Amazon.
Corinne, talk for a minute about a term that you use a lot that most people probably don't know the term, and that is ROAS, return on advertising spend. So let's say I decide to promote my book on Amazon, like advertise my book on Amazon. If I spend $1,000 on advertising and I sell $1,000 worth of books, like I'm happy as a pig in slop, because it's like, okay, well, I kind of broke even. Now I know that, if I have a publisher, my royalties aren't going to be $1,000. And even if I self-publish the book, I've got expenses. So it's not like I'm getting $1,000 directly back, but I did sell $1,000 worth of books. And, when somebody reads my book, that might prompt them to want to engage with me further. And so I'm playing the long game. I'm looking at more relational versus transactional, immediate. But how should authors be thinking about return on advertising spend, and like what's really good, what's acceptable, and what's like, well, if you're not at least doing this, maybe you should stop advertising on Amazon?
Yeah, so ROAS is one of the primary metrics that we use to determine ad efficiency. I think it's the easiest to understand metric, and it gives us the most visibility and context. So the ROAS, like you said, is how much sales are you generating for every dollar you spend in advertising. Now, when you first start ads, your goal should be break even. You want to generate $1 in sales for every $1 spent on advertising. If you are not at that $1, it likely means that you're not targeting the right people. You're getting lots of people to visit your book page and you're pulling them in with your ad, but the page itself isn't delivering what the ad promised to them. So you could be targeting the wrong people. You could your book page might not be clear about the value that the book brings those readers. You need to really look into why it's not converting first. So then once you get at that break even point, you can start analyzing the ad results to see, okay, what segment, what am I targeting that's driving the majority of those sales? Is it a specific keyword that if somebody searches that 80% of the time I close a sale? Is it another book in the marketplace that if my book shows on their book page, I get a sale more often than not? And then you can hone in on, okay, what are some variations on that keyword that I can use to connect with similar readers? Or that book that's driving the majority of my sales, does that author have any other books? Or are there books that are positioned as a peer to that book that I can also target? And you're really just trying to continually improve that ROAS. If I can get to a $2 to $3 ROAS, I think that's a successful campaign. And we've had a lot of success lately with Amazon advertising where I'm seeing $3 and $4 ROAS. And that goes back to our previous conversation about niches. That is honing in on what keyword is converting, what category is converting, and going straight to the people who are most likely to buy your book. And I think the other great thing to think about Amazon ads is there's value in them besides the sale. They generate activity on your book page. So those clicks impact your Amazon rankings. And if there's enough clicks happening, you could make your book rank as a bestseller through advertising, which then triggers additional free promotion. So there's kind of a short term and that long tail again about what advertising can do for your book.
Corinne, man, this is a topic we could spend hours on. And I already know we're going to have you back on the show for another episode in the near future to keep talking about this, because this is like a rabbit hole. It's a great rabbit hole, but we could just go deeper and deeper and deeper. So because I know we have time limits and I know the clock is getting short on us, let's tackle one more topic. And that is Amazon reviews, these coveted reviews. So number one, why are they important? Number two, what impact do they have on visibility and search and algorithm? And then number three, like if I'm an author, outside of begging and pleading people that I know to give me an Amazon review, like how can you create more Amazon reviews?
Yeah, so Amazon reviews are the holy grail of book success. Those reviews are the social proof that browsers need to feel good about their buying decision. They also add SEO value to a book page. And just generally, they create activity on that page, which impacts the rankings. And it can give you free promotion from the algorithm. So reviews are difficult to generate, specifically for nonfiction books, specifically for books who are targeting C-suite executives. When I talk to a room full of authors and I ask them, have you left an Amazon book review in the last week? Have you left one in the last month? How about the last 6 months? Very few hands go up in the air, and they are their own ideal reader. So they need to just have some expectations around that. But the number one place to generate consumer reviews when a book is first on the market is that author's network. They need to feel good about giving away free copies of that book to people who are most invested in their success and will, agree to go to Amazon and kind of get that ball rolling. And then through marketing and book promotion, we can take the book out to reader communities to build a pipeline of reviews. And then as books sell through, that's naturally going to build another parallel pipeline of potential reviews for the book as well. So it needs a little kickstart from the author's network, but we can generally get the ball rolling through those three outlets.
And Corinne, I know more is always better, right? There's probably no number that's too big when it comes to Amazon reviews, but is there a rule of thumb where like, hey, you really need to at least reach for a certain threshold, and once you get to a certain threshold in terms of reviews, then it creates a life of its own. That's my first question. My second question is, you can rate a book 1 to 5 stars. So is there also a threshold where like, hey, if it's below 4 stars, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you, or something like that?
Yeah, so the only real number we have from Amazon is to get to 15 reviews as soon as you can. 15 reviews is where advertising starts to convert browsers to buyers at an optimal rate. So beyond that, what I've seen over the years is that the authors that can hit 30 reviews in 30 days, 60 and 60, 90 and 90 are kind of my imposed benchmarks, where I see those books sell continually for the long term. So that's kind of the benchmarks that I set. Now, in terms of star reviews, there's been a lot of research done on Amazon products. The sweet spot is about 3.5 to 4.5. Consumers like to see varying opinions. They like to know that they are hearing from real consumers. Once a star rating is at 5 consistently, they start to get a little suspicious. They're like, how is everyone loving this product? So, I never like to see a negative review come in for a book, but consumers are smarter than we give them credit for. They weigh all of those reviews, and they like to see that it's actually selling through to real people and is sparking a conversation.
Well, last thing, Corinne, we've mentioned books, but there's ebooks, audiobooks, hardcover. If an author's about to go on their authority journey with a book, do you need all 3? Is one enough? Tell us about that as we wrap things up.
Yeah, love to see all 3 editions. It creates 3 different entry points into your content. It also appeals to people based on their learning style, their reading style, especially when you're talking about C-suite executives. They're traveling, they're in meetings. Audiobooks allow them to listen at twice the speed. Ebooks allow them to take a lightweight device with them or read on their phone. So it's all about the accessibility of your content, and adding all formats really optimizes that.
Awesome. Corinne, if people have more questions then, because like Adam said, we talk about this forever. How can people reach you? What's the best way to get in touch with Corinne Foster?
Yeah, they're welcome to email me. I'm cfoster@forbesbooks.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I share information there, and there is a webinar up on my LinkedIn, more details on Amazon algorithm and how to optimize your advertising as well.
Awesome. Her name is Corinne Foster, Senior Director of Book Promotions and Marketing at Forbes Books. Corinne, thank you much for the time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Joe, I told you, top 5 in the world.
Yeah, she knows her stuff. And Adam, next time on the podcast, you know the phrase, the proof is in the pudding. On our next episode, we are going to talk to an authority who's followed the plan, who's become a star in their field. So tune in for the next time at Build Your Authority. Adam, thank you so much for the time. I'll see you next time.